Hello, this video is about social media customer service that we plan to implement as part of our customer interaction framework in the coming months. There is no fixed timeline, as I'll illustrate later on, but what I will explain in this video is technically feasible, and I'll explain what is feasible, how, and how this will look like in the final pages. So the idea is that in the customer interaction framework, I assume you, by the way, you have seen my previous videos on the customer interaction framework, so I will not go and re-explain the general concept of that. If you have not done so, please look the 3-minute video that I generated for that before you view this particular video. So up here you will have the customer interaction history with all interactions that are captured by CIM, such as chat messages, calls with recordings, browser activities. And new would be social media posts by the customer. This can be social media posts or comments on a company asset. So it has to be a comment on a company-owned Facebook page or a similar company-owned asset. Now, in the case of Facebook, there is a concept of a basically comment to a Facebook post, and we will embed the comment that particular customer made on the company website, visible through a widget that we will embed in the customer interaction framework. So if an agent looks up that particular customer's interaction history, he will see all the calls the customer made, plus also the social media posts made on company-owned assets, if that particular customer identity is tracked, obviously, in the company's database. Now, the comment that the customer made can be analyzed by artificial intelligence. So we've done this in the past for other social media websites. So we can analyze abusive or detect abusive content. We are able to detect sentiments, if a customer is happy or unhappy or things like that. And we can also provide automated answers with basic NLU or chatbot capabilities. Down here, the agent will see suggested answers that the agent can send out or attach as a reply to that particular comment. And if the agent chooses one of those answers or writes something down here, that action will be, or that comment will be applied to that particular comment as an answer to that particular comment. This could be a comment, but it could also be an action, such as flagging a user, deleting or blocking a user from making further comments, or deleting that comment from the company-owned page, for example, if it's an abusive content. Now, what the agent does on the Facebook page or on the blog will only appear on the Facebook page, so on the company assets. It will not appear in the customer interaction history. The customer interaction history will only contain things that the customer said on company-owned assets, plus bilateral private discussions between the customer and an agent. The CIM customer interaction history will not contain public comments that the agent made publicly visible for the whole world to see. So if an agent writes a public reply to a comment to a customer, that comment will not appear in that customer's interaction history. So the comment will only appear on the Facebook page, for example. Now, if you would like to have a private conversation with that customer, the same will apply as for any media that you might want to engage with a certain customer. So if that agent here sees that this customer posted something here, and he wants to start a private bilateral conversation, he can choose, for example, to use Facebook Messenger as a chat channel and start a private bilateral chat with that customer. And in this case, this conversation, because it's private, will be tracked in the customer interaction history with the customer, and the private message will be received by the customer over Facebook Messenger, not on Facebook comments or Facebook posts. So that's the way how we differentiate, how we make visible in the interaction history comments and posts on company-owned assets, how that were posted by a certain customer, that we do not make visible what the agent answers, but we do enable start of a bilateral interaction with that particular customer. In terms of timelines, CIM will be ready roughly on January 30th to be able to absorb these new kind of objects, such as Facebook or other comments or other media, basically. We will, including voice and other things, obviously. Embedding Facebook comments will roughly require 2 weeks professional services. We have done that before, so it's possible that this is quicker. It's a concept that we know quite well. It's just a question of basically reintegrating with CIM. So it's primarily quality assurance that we need to do here. The next thing then that you might want to do is to do some natural language understanding work, for example, to detect abusive content. That is pretty much ready. We can use Google's Perspective API to detect abusive content such as racist, sexist, threatening, and that kind of language. If you would like to have sentiment analysis, this would require a dedicated engine. We have not yet used sentiment analysis engines out of the box, at least. They probably exist. We just have not yet integrated with them. We could build one using a Bayesian classifier. These exist, so we know those engines as well. If we would work with the raw engine only without a predefined model, we would require training data. So we would need thousands of comments to be classified. This is a happy customer, this is a neutral customer, this is an unhappy customer. So you would need to give us a lot of examples where you say which category certain statements belong in. Unhappy, so, la, la, really happy. And with that kind of training data, we could train an AI engine that we could do pretty rapidly, but providing the training data is typical a lot of manual work that needs to be done. I would probably guess that that would take 1 or 2 months of effort just to provide this training data. Again, if it does not exist yet out of the box. The next thing you would probably want to do or might want to do is to run or have reports. So for example, you would want to know, how does customer satisfaction for that customer evolve over time? How does my customer satisfaction in general apply over time, or how does my customer satisfaction for that customer segment evolve over time? This type of information can be potentially retrieved by quality assurance scores from supervisors. It can be extracted from NLU based on comments that you extract from social media. It can come from explicit CSAT scores, post-collaboration survey, for example, or other classifying mechanisms. Now, in order to capture this type of metadata about conversations, we plan to introduce the notion of form, which we estimate to have ready roughly in April 2020. Now, we already have all those products available, you might say. So we do have already agent guidance, we have pre-chat forms, we have post-collaboration surveys, we have quality assurance forms, and we have call tags and reason codes and so on. So we have all that data, and we have the notion of form notes as well. Now, all those products are currently disjointed, independent products capturing their own data, and we would like to unify all of that with the notion of forms. And customer satisfaction would be one of those metadata elements that you could capture and store in the object called forms. by various sources, either again automatically using NLU or formally in a CSAT form that the customer then enters at the end of a conversation. And this would then basically allow you to run reports and statistics over those parameters that are contained in those forms over a time sequence, and then extract and build reports based on that. Our initial focus will be to make this data available in our CIM database. And in initial phase, we'll just provide a data layer, and you can then run ETL, extract, transform, load. The ETL layer on top of it, plus business intelligence to represent this data visually. We'll probably also integrate at some point with Cisco CUCCX. And as a professional service, if you want, you can buy from us professional services to render that customer satisfaction data that we can retrieve from multiple sources and then represent it in that way. The advantage of this approach, it might be a little bit the longer approach, is that we can capture customer satisfaction from various sources. Right now, we do this only formally in the form of post-collaboration surveys. With NLU, we can extract this from social media posts, for example, but this can then be also extracted from, generally speaking, chat messages. And if you have a speech recognition engine that is then followed up by an NLU engine, we could basically also extract customer satisfaction from speech directly. So this concept of forms is very generic. So it means it will not be limited to social media, customer service, or chat. It's the general concept, and so you would be able to measure customer satisfaction across all media, voice, chat, emails, web, and social media. Voila. In terms of those timelines, those are estimates from myself. As usual, we do not give any firm timelines or confirmations to any customer or project or product. These are estimates. We do not take any legal obligation to deliver any one of those things until those dates. We work in sprints, which means we give visibility to customers typically for the coming 3 weeks. And then we prioritize the next 3 weeks on what we are going to do in the next 3 weeks. Based on the average loads that we currently have, we have finished several large projects right now. The timelines that I state here seem to be realistic, but again, this is not a legal confirmation that we will do, and we will not take any obligation or penalties if those timelines are not met. This is just a roadmap and a general timeline. And it is also a confirmation that from our perspective, this framework is something that we will be able to sustain over the long run. So it's not a quick patch or a quick fix that we apply. So we are not willing to build Frankenstein monsters just to have a quick success. We will do things in the right way, in a way that we can support it across many customers. So we're not trying to do a customer-specific development here. If those timelines don't suit you, we do suggest you to go for dedicated social media frameworks that exist, that do similar jobs. The disadvantage, obviously, is you will then only have visibility on social media, but on nothing else. My suggestion would be to work with something like we can offer, which is generally a 360 degrees across speech, chat, any sort of text conversation, and social media. But again, if you do need to have customer satisfaction, comments, extraction right now, immediately, please go to other frameworks. There are pretty good frameworks that exist starting from about $200 a month. They are all cloud-based solutions. There are no on-prem solutions like we have. And it starts from $100 to $1,000 per month. So I do suggest you go with those frameworks if you are not willing to wait until we are ready. Again, those are tentative timelines. But this is also to say that we will eventually tackle those components over time, these are also general concepts. So it's not dependent on any one customer or any one project. It's something that we will generally do, and that we will ensure that we test it accordingly, that we do penetration tests and security verification like we usually do. So this will take some time, as I explained here, but things will then also be solid and can be put under some level of stress as well. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a very good day.